Hi guys, welcome to the next instalment from Pride Parkway. I'm Jeff and behind me is my N-Gage loft layout. Lots of work been going on this week. It's only a week, just over a week I think it is, since my last video went out, where I was installing all the track detail through this town and industrial scene behind me. And I've been working flat out to try and get all of the ballast in and the weathering done throughout this section on the track, and also around the track, so getting some of the greenery and all that kind of thing. If I move this way you can see some of it over my shoulder. The video is a little bit longer than I would like it to have been, but I wanted to get this all done in one video because I want to move on to the back to the TMD next. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the video. As always, huge thank you to everybody who's everybody who's subscribing, and to my new subscribers as well. Really do appreciate it. Thank you to everybody for the lovely comments as well. If you do have any questions, any ideas, any suggestions, please leave them down below, and I will be back probably in a week or so with the next video for you. Speak to you soon. Take care. Bye bye. Alright, so it's time to start the ballasting, dreaded ballasting. Now, I don't mind ballasting too much. I'm probably tempting fate saying that, but it's one of those things that it just makes a massive difference. It's got to be done, and so I'm just going to jump in and do it. Now, in my last two videos, you'll have seen that I have already painted all the track a rust colour, all the rails, and the other thing that I've also done is I've now fitted all of the infrastructure. So just slide this in. Here is my hall that I'm going to be using. Now, on my last layout, which none of you saw because I didn't record it, I also used this Woodland Scenic fine ballast, but all I did was I used one colour, and the one colour that I used was this fine grey. And this was absolutely everywhere on the layout, and it was really wrong is the best word I can use. It basically just looked too uniform, too brand new. It didn't work for what I'm hearing, the era I'm modelling, sorry. It's just, you don't see ballast all in one colour and all nice and uniform. So this time I'm going to be using a variety of ballast. So I have got fine grey, fine cinders, fine dark brown, fine buff, and also this Gauge Master / Knock granite ballast as well, N-Gage version of this. Now, it's important to remember that at this stage this is just a base. Once we get this down, we're also going to be, and it's all glued down, we're also going to be using some paints to weather the tracks as well. So this is just the starting point. Couple of things that I use when I'm ballasting, a couple of tools. Trusty little handheld hoover. This, I think it was about £10 on Amazon, and it's just a rechargeable hoover. It's really easy to use. It's just a USB charger, and the great thing with this is you can hoover up all your loose ballast, and then you can open it up and take out any loose ballast. And remember, you're not going to glue the ballast down straight away, because if you make a mistake you can just hoover it up with this, reuse it, job done, saves you any waste. Good old trusty spoon, and just an old paintbrush where I have cut down the ends of it, so I've got some nice stiff bristles on there. Now, I also do own somewhere, there's wandering around the lot, found it, one of these, and this is a ballast spreader device thing. It's been used before. I used it on my last layout. This is fantastic, but because of the fact I'm doing the town scene, there's platforms and all kinds of things in the way, so this will get used at a further point in the layout when I'm doing the countryside, but for now, no good for me. Needs to do it all with a spoon. Now, just going to head over to the layout and let's take a look at what we need to do. Okay, so here we are looking down through the station. The camera's a little bit wonky, so apologies for that. But you can see here nice and clearly the two what are going to be electrified fast lines, and then the two slower branch relief lines over here. We've got concrete sleeper, we've got wooden sleeper, and we are going to have the dark brown over this side as the prominent colour, and on this side we're going to have the fine grey as the prominent colour. So they're the two main colours. Now a couple of things to remember, to keep in mind. All the tracks down, I've checked it all, I'm happy with it all, I've had trains running both directions and it's all good. Now I'm only working on this one part of the layout that you can see in the camera at the moment. There is a whole lot more of the layout. I'm not going to be ballasting that yet. I'm working in sections, and there's the odd bit of track work in other parts of the layout that needs a bit of attention. But for this area that I'm working on, I am happy with it as it stands at the moment. Now, all the way through this station area here, this is cork bed, and the cork bed runs from the back of this platform here right the way through, and that means that the platforms and the track are sitting on the cork, so that's all the right height that I need it to be. However, when we move further down, we've got a ballast shoulder to keep in mind as well. So that's going to get a little bit more complicated because we've got that shoulder, but for this bit up here it should be pretty simple. So I'm going to get the camera set up, get a bit of a time lapse going, and show you me. Actually, I'm going to turn the power off everywhere first, and show you me doing the work on this. So let's get started. Okay, so I've made my way along now through the station area on both tracks. We've got the grey on this side and we've got the brown on that side. As you can see, it's very, very one colour. There's no texture, there's no nothing. It's not the tidiest thing yet. I still need to do a lot more tidying up on it, but that's got us a good base colour down. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go along and I'm just going to randomly add some extra colours. So I'm going to sprinkle over the top first, and then I'm going to put some areas higher, not higher, sorry, more solid colour than others. So I'm going to start with this Gauge Master mixed grey on this side, and I'm also going to use the buff on this side as well, and then on the opposite side I'm going to use some of the Wooden Scenic grey. I also had a big tub of this as well as a small one, and then also just some other random bits and bobs like some fine cinders as well. So I'll get that done and then I will come back to you. Okay, so hopefully you can see the colour that I've gone for here. Now this is N-gauge, so it is going to be hard for you to see, but hopefully you can pick up the grey with the other varying tones that we've got in amongst that. And then over on this side, I'm just going to move the camera. There we go. So we've got a much older look there with the brown ballast at the bottom and then some newer ballast at the top, as if it's been replenished. Now there's bits all over the platform, so I'm going to get all that brushed off. I'm going to go back down through all the track now and make sure that there's as little as possible sat on the top of the sleepers and also on the rails themselves as well. The way I do that's really, really simple. I'm going to tap it with a spoon, so just like they do in the real world with a tamping machine. I'm going to go along and tap, and that will make all the ballast, hopefully the camera's picking that up, bounce around and move to where I want it to be. I'll use a small brush on these catch pits just to clear the top of them. And another quick way I found to do it in N-gauge for two tracks is to get the lid off an aerosol and just go along and bang it, and it does the same thing as a spoon, except it gets two tracks at once. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm just going to check that all the points are free as well, they're moving freely. And then the very last thing I need to do is where the sensors are for my signals. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but I put a little bit of tape over just to try and stop ballast from getting in there. I just need to take that off, clean that up, vacuum out any that might have got into the sensors, and then reseal them over again, just to protect them ready for the next stage. So we've got that done so far right the way through the station. I'm going to keep going through the station, and then I will come back to you once that's done. So there we go, we're looking from the other end now. I've just moved the camera down, so you're looking towards the tunnels. I've just removed the tunnel mouths while I'm doing the ballast, and but hopefully you can see there the effect that I've gone for, and how you've got a real distinction between the two older lines and the two newer lines. Now I'm happy with this. I've got, I would say, 99% of the ballast off where I want rid of it. All the points are moving. My little handheld hoover is perfect for just right on the point blades. I just give it a quick blast for a second, and it just clears anything away from where the point blades are going to be. And the other thing I forgot to mention that I also do is when I put the ballast around the points, I work away from them so that I don't get anything trapped into the mechanism. Now the next job is to move. I'm going to move the camera. Is to come and start working on this part of the layout all the way around here. The only thing I have to do a little bit different, if you remember, I'm using this Woodland Scenics cork bed, and it's on a bit of an angle, and what I found is if you sprinkle the ballast on from the top, it just rolls straight down the sides, it doesn't stick. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to do it exactly the same way as I've done in the last clip, but before I start I just get some PVA and a paintbrush, and I just go along these edges. Make sure I'm on the camera here, just like that, right the way along, and that just basically means that the ballast just sticks a little bit on them shoulders as it falls down, just enough to give it something to grab onto on the way down. I don't worry about doing the top, just the sides. As I say, it just gives the ballast something to hold onto. So I'm going to get all this side ballasted just like I've done before, and then I'll come back to you. I'll see you in a second. Alright, so there we have it. That is the ballast laid out right the way around. If I move the camera around, you can see it might be a little bit high for you to see the ballast shoulder, but hopefully it's picking it up. You can see here comes right up to where the cable trunking is. Same on this side. If I move the camera back a little bit, here we go. We'll go up to the cable trunking there and not onto this side of it, and then I've got a relatively straight edge running right the way up there. Just get the camera to focus. There we go. I'm moving around. And that goes all the way around until we connect into the station, which is what you saw earlier. So I am now going to leave this, and I am going to go and have some dinner, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to have another look at it after dinner and see if I'm happy with it and see if there's anything that I want to. Hi guys, so it is the next morning. I came back up here last night after dinner like I said I was, and I just wanted to check I was happy with everything. I was happy with everything. I tidied up a few edges that needed tidying up just using the paintbrush, and I ran some trains just to make sure that everything was still running properly, which it was. So therefore we're ready for the next step. So the things I need today is I'm not going to break any rules or try and reinvent the wheel or anything like that. I will be using IPA in a squirty bottle. It's just an old hair product bottle that has a really nice fine mist on it. Saturate all of the ballast with the IPA. That's the first thing, and then I will be using a 50-50 mix of PVA, just standard PVA, and water. Other brands of squash / water are available, and into that I'll just be putting a tiny drop of washing up liquid into it as well. Now before I start, I've got the good old trusty masking tape out, and all I'm going to do is just recover the sensors over the signals, and also just cover this part of the point blades as well, just to stop me getting too much glue. And now all of these points are all wired up to point motors, so they should be pretty good once they're done and cleaned, but just to give them a little bit of protection. And then what I would use to apply my glue and PVA mix is this. It's a little squirty bottle. I think it was about £1 from Squires, although I'm sure you can get them all over the internet. And I just put my mix in here and then just go down the track and just get it all in there. Obviously not going past the point like I just did, but going straight the way down. Nice and simple. And then I have a smaller version of the same bottle with a needle applicator on the end, and I use that around the points where I need to be a little bit more precise. You can use pipettes and all that kind of stuff. I just find that this works quite well. It's got a nice flow on it, so I use this, and as I say, it was £1. One last thing that I also need to do is I just need to protect all my platforms. Even though they've had a coat of matte varnish, they are made out of cardboard. So I've got some strips here of some old bits of loft insulation, and I'm just going to lie them down just like that. Get some tins of paint or something on there to weigh them down. When I say tins of paint, I don't mean Dulux that you use in your living room. These kinds of things, and that'll just help protect the platform surfaces while I'm spraying, and I'm using the glue as well. So I'm going to crack on, I'm going to get that done, and I will get back to you once we've got it all flooded with glue. Okay, there we have it. All the track is glued, or the ballast even, is glued. And now I'm going to do the hardest thing, which is just to leave it. There is a couple of little mistakes that I've made. I'm not sure whether the camera's picking this one up, but you can see just here where I've first hit it with a spray bottle. I've been a bit too close and just moved the ballast. But it's impossible to fix it while it's wet. So just leave it, and then all we'll do is once it's dried, we'll just put a little bit more spray down, sprinkle some more ballast over the top and fix it then, but not now. There is some white puddles on here. Again, don't worry about them, they will disappear as they dry. I'm going to leave this now for at least overnight, and I will be back in the loft tomorrow and have a look to see how it's dried. So I'll be back soon. So it's the next day, and I have took off all of my protective covering from the platforms, and it's pretty dry, to be honest with you. I mean, it's definitely dry to the touch. As I say, it's warm over the Easter holidays in the UK, so it's not fully dry. I'm going to give it another 24 hours before I do anything too radical with it. But what I am going to do is just go along and get rid of any loose bits. And to do that, I just run my finger basically backwards and forwards along the top of the sleepers, and that will just get rid of anything that's a bit more stubborn. Tools of the trade, a couple of thin screwdrivers and a pair of tweezers, just to clean that off. As well as that, I just need to touch up anywhere, so I've got a couple of bits at the other end of the platform where I'd missed, and they're tiny, you won't even be able to see them on these pictures, but hopefully you can see the effect that I wanted and that I've got in the ballast. It's not just all one tone. It looks nice and new on this renewed high-speed line, and much older on this line as well. So last night, while the rest of the track work was drying, I also targeted the DMU, both this one at the front and also the one at the back, and on them I just used a 50-50 mix of the brown Woodland Scenic ballast and the fine cinders, just to give it a really dirty look. Now I'm going to be hitting that up with all kinds of other stuff, but I'm happy with that at the minute. I've also put some catch pits in, as you can see just here, they run a straight line along. And the other thing I've done is I've extended some of the hard standing in this area as well. So if I can get the camera in the right position, there we go. So the hard standing used to end here, and I've brought it out a little bit further just so that once the engine sheds on, you can still see a little bit of the hard standing outside of it. So next job, get this track cleaned up best I can, and then I am going to do a little bit of scenic work, but just basically while things are dry and I'm finding other things to do. So let me just put this camera down and I'll show you what I'm going to be using. So areas like this here between the tracks, this is going to be kind of like a wasteland scrub area. There wouldn't really be anything grown here between the two railway lines. We're in the middle of an industrial setting here. We've also got these areas at the back here as well that just need a little bit of something. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using some Woodland Scenics fine turf. That's the first thing that'll be going down. Then on top of that, I'm going to use some of this product, which you may or may not have seen before. Now this is from Geek Gaming Scenics. You might be following Luke Alps on YouTube. It's one of his products, and it's called Base Ready Scrubland. It's basically just a mixture of bits of rocks and bits of grass and bits of gravel and all kinds of stuff, so I'll be using some of that down on here as well. And then I'll finish it off by using some 2mm static grass. I do have a static grass applicator. This again came from Gaming Scenics, so we'll have a little bit of that down, as well as chucking in some old sleepers and some couple of old tracks and things like that as well, rails even, should I say, sorry, into these areas. And then once that's done, I will be getting the airbrush out and hitting all of the track with some paint basically. But let me get the scenics down and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so while all that greenery is drying, we've got the static grass on there now, and also some bushes as well. I'm going to turn my attention back to the tracks, back to the ballasting, and we're going to be adding some of this Hatton's oil spill kit. Now I'm going to be predominantly using this in the two DMU areas, but also a little bit of it in the station, just kind of where the locals would be while they're pulling in and out. Now it's going to be much heavier in the DMU yard and also in the TMD area than it is in the station. But basically what this is a box from Hatton's. I think it cost me about £10, and inside of it you get two things. One of them is this oil spill solution, which we will look at tomorrow, and the other thing, if I grab it because I've already got it out, is this bag of really fine dusty ballast. I think it's actually like a tile grout, a really fine tile grout, but all you do is you just put it on the tracks and brush it along, and then we come back and we glue it down just like we do with ballast, and then we will paint it up. Now you can see here around this diesel fueling point I've already started to have a little play, and basically all I've done is I've opened the bag, I've used a spoon just like I would with the ballast, and if I just move the camera over slightly to this area here, just here you can see I've just used the spoon and I've just lifted some of it out, and just get the camera to focus, there we go, and I've spooned it out. Now this is going to be a sign, so this is going to be really heavily oil stained, and I'm just using a brush to go along to feed it along, and I want it to come over the sides as well, and basically I'm just going to use the brush to spread that out and to manipulate it, and then all I'm going to do is exactly the same as I did when I ballasted, and that is I'm going to add some IPA over the top first of all to get it nice and wet. Now this is quite fine dust and it's likely going to go everywhere, so I'm going to have to spray from quite a distance, and then I'm also going to cover it just the same as I did before with some PVA 50-50 mix with some water and a drop of detergent as well, soap powder, washing up liquid even, and get that done. So I'm going to cover all of this diesel yard and the DMU area, and then I'm going to get a little bit in the station as well, get this glued down, leave it overnight, and I will come back to you tomorrow with what we need to do next. So I will see you shortly. Bye bye. Okay, apologies, but I've just realised that I've just recorded a whole clip and started some painting, and the camera wasn't on, so I didn't record anything, so I'm going to redo it, but I've already started the work before I realised what was going on. So all the track has been cleaned to get rid of any excess ballast, and the way I do that is the good old track rubber, give a good old clean on the top of the rails with the track rubber, and then I also just use a little screwdriver, and I just basically run that along the inside of the rails there, just very gently, and it just pings off any bits of ballast that are stuck on there. Once I've done that, I stick a train onto the track with this, This is the Gauge Master track cleaning wagon. I don't particularly like this. I don't particularly use it. It looks rubbish, but it does do the job in this circumstance. So I hook that up to my 37, get that running around, and you can hear if there's any ballast that you've missed on the side of the rails, you'll hear it because it makes a weird clicking noise when it goes over the wheel, hits over it. So I just follow it around and clip off any little bits, and then give it all a good hoover over and over and over again. Not with the little hoover that I was using before, but with the actual proper hoover. I use a Dyson handheld, but you could use any kind of hoover, just to make sure you've got all the rubbish up. Once that's done, I've got the good old masking tape back out over the points, and it's time to start doing some painting. So what I'm using is a airbrush. My airbrush is frankly a bit rubbish. It's a cheap arts and crafts airbrush, single action, so spraying air out all the time, and then you control the paint as you would normally. It doesn't have a cover on, which means I've got to be super careful not to spill anything out the top of that. In hindsight, this was probably the worst £30 I've ever spent, and I should have just spent £60 and bought a better one. But it does for track work. I wouldn't dream of painting a local with it, or wagons or anything like that, but it works for now, and I'll maybe ask Santa for a better one towards the end of the year. Then what I'm doing is I'm giving all of the track a paint with the rail match sleeper grime, and I'm basically just hitting down the middle, down there, and then of course across the sides as well, and that just adds to the rust that I'd already put on, and it also just takes off the whiteness, especially on that concrete track. It takes how bright it is away. After that, I've gone over everywhere where I put the Hatton's oil spill powder, which you saw in one of my last clips, and I've just used a brush to put some of this in. Now you can see there's a little bit of this here. It's quite, get the camera to focus. I haven't put a huge amount in here, but in the yards I've put a lot of it. And then the final job will be to go back over it with some rail match acrylic, and this is the roof grime, and I'm just going to go straight down the middle of all the tracks just to get that grime in, and that'll just bring together where I've got the Hatton's oil spills and all that kind of stuff. All of this I'm using, I've diluted probably 50-50 with some Humbrol acrylic thinners, and I just mix that up using pipettes in a separate tub, and then from there, I don't know if this is recording or not. Sorry, the camera keeps playing silly. Sorry, my camera's really playing up today. I don't know what's wrong with it. But yeah, as I was saying, I use these Humbrol acrylic thinners with the rail match paints. Use pipette, mix it up 50-50, and I mix it up in a separate little tub, and then just take it from the separate tub and put it straight into the airbrush. I'm going to crack on and get this painted. I don't really think there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. If you look at real pictures of the real railway, they're just dirty places. So I'm not going to worry about whether it's right or whether it's wrong. As long as it looks right to me, then it's right in my eyes. I'm sure some people would disagree, but you know, that's the way I'm going to work this. I'm going to try and record it, but as I say, the camera keeps turning itself off, so we'll see if this clip works or not. So let's crack on with it. Right, so that is the airbrushing done. It's obviously wet at the moment. I've just used up what I had left in the airbrush on this area here. This was painted with the Town and Scenics, Town and Country Scenics, I think it's called. You get it from Squire's texture paint. And this is going to be one of the DMU areas, but it was a very, very light grey. So I've gone over it with the roof grime that I had left in the airbrush just to use it up. And actually, even though it's still wet, I'm really pleased with how that's turned out. But you can hopefully get an idea now of just how weathered the tracks are looking, especially here in the yard areas. But I'm going to leave this paint to dry. Once it's dry, I'll come back, remove the tape, clean the track again, and then the final job will be just to add a little bit of static grass here and there, a little bit of foliage, not finally foliage, sorry, it's clump foliage, just a little bit between the tracks, in between the lines. So welcome back, guys, and I am done, finitoed. I'm really happy with where we're at. Just a little bit of irony, I was cleaning that rubbish airbrush that I was whinging about in the last clip, and it completely disintegrated in my hands and I can't get it to go back together. So it looks like I will be buying a new airbrush sooner than I expected. But as you can see here on these two newer fast lines, I'm holding the camera, so I'm going to have to move around with it just so you can see what I've done. But this gives you an idea of what that looks like. Jump over the platforms, and again just a look down platform 3 and 4, so you can get an idea of what the weathering looks like down there. I did have one slight problem that I had to fix. The AWS ramps that I'd installed, if I can get one on the camera, there's one just there. I'd installed them, as I said, in the packet, but they sat too high on the tracks, so basically I had to cut a little bit out of the sleepers, set it in, and then reballast around it. But I'm happy with how that looks now that it's in there, so that's fine. Some of the track detailing, if I move the camera around, you can see we've got over here a little scene going on by the signal, and I've started to put in most of the ground cover around as well, so I'm really happy with how that's looking. And that goes right the way across and right the way over to this side as well, where the car park will eventually be. I'm just going to move you around, so apologies, I'm going to try and do this as easily as I can. Let me just move the camera down so you can get a good bird's eye view. Coming down through the station, through both the platforms, and I really have, I've got areas of different colours and different tones in the paintwork all the way down that you can see, and that was just basically trial and error. And if you can look, once we get to this end, so where the locals will come in and stop, diesel locals, have left a little bit more mess on the tracks there than further down. Again, over in this back area, I've now put in some of the greenery. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so that you can see a little bit more, get a kind of a bird's eye view as we move around, coming out the station area and through the two TMD areas. In the actual TMD areas themselves, I've gone really heavy with the grime and the dirt, right the way through here. No ballast shoulders, like I said at the beginning of the video, or anything like that. And I've just hit some of the hard standing with the airbrush as well, just to blend in some of the colours around there. You can get an idea, you can see there. And if I move over into this back DMU facility, you can see the dirt and the grime there. All the trains are running, everything's tested, I'm happy with it. So we are in a good place. So I'm going to leave you there. This video has been a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but I wanted to get all this ballasting and weathering together in one video. Thank you for everybody who's following along on my journey. I've got over 330 subscribers now, which is absolutely fantastic, so thank you to each and every one of you. If it's your first time here, please do subscribe. I'd love to have you along on the journey with me and love to hear your thoughts. And I will be back with my next video when we actually start to get some buildings and some details put into this DMU yard, and also the TMD area as well. It's time. This area is very, very flat, so it's time to get some buildings and some fences and get it all brought together. So thanks again, guys. Take care of yourselves, and I will be back with another video probably the same time next week. I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.